Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special holiday episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. I am your host, Melissa Reich, your Bish Therapist, a real life therapist turned pop culture aficionado, here to serve clinical interpretations and hot takes on all things pop culture. Today's episode, as promised, is going to be a special, brief episode to help everyone navigate the holidays. So, this time of year, Christmas is coming up for those who celebrate. Hanukkah just passed and Kwanzaa is coming up as well. And for those of you who, don't celebrate, it's just winter. It's cold. In a lot of places. It's dark early. It's just this time of year can be challenging, whether it's the holidays or not. So I wanted to just pop in, first of all, to say hi. I've missed you all. My break has been less relaxing after Kyle Richards blew up my life. And for those of you who don't know, or if you don't follow me on Instagram, I'll briefly kind of tell you what happened. So I had posted a clinical interpretation about what I felt was going on with Kyle. And I posted it on my Instagram page, which, by the way, if you don't follow me on Instagram, please go over and follow me, Your Bish Therapist, YOURBISH Therapist on Instagram. Because when I watch shows and I'm not doing my podcast, I write out some clinical interpretations and I share them there, and people seem to really enjoy that. And on one occasion, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now, I posted this clinical interpretation of Kyle, what I felt was going on with her, and she reposted it. She literally, I was like, oh my God, what is happening? I saw that she reposted it, and I thought at first oh, this can't be Kyle. This is, a fake Instagram page, whatever. And then I really saw that it was her, and my whole life blew up in a 48-hour period. Everybody was talking about me on podcasts. I was in some Bravo news articles and things like that. And I got like 4,000 new followers overnight. It was wild. It was incredibly wild. And essentially what Kyle said was, please read every slide of this post, because this is, what's been happening. And I'm still flabbergasted. I still can't believe that really happened. It was a wild experience. And, I don't know what else to say about it other than, Kyle, if you're listening, I love you. Thank you. Appreciate you. And to everyone who's just been so supportive and so wonderful and just continues to be, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to all the new followers. And I can't wait to see what happens next. So today what I'm going to talk a little bit about is I'm going to give some tips and recommendations for getting through the holidays, the winter season, get together with family or friends or, what have you. Or sometimes, this is a tough time because people aren't able to do that. So I'm just going to share a little bit of my wisdom to you to hopefully help get through this time. So the first tip that I have is this is for people who have a lot of trauma and who will be around their families. My first bit of advice is to remember that you're an adult now and stay grounded in the present moment. And remember that you are in charge. Sometimes it's really triggering for folks who have a history of trauma to be around family, or sometimes to not be around family. That can be triggering too. And so when you have a lot of feelings about stuff, you really have to check in with yourself and remind yourself that this is now, this isn't then. And you're an adult, you're in charge, and you're safe, and you are going to do the things that you need to do to keep yourself safe. So I think that for people who have a history of trauma can be really important. I also am a really big, in my practice, I focus a lot on your inner child. I think we all have these inner children that are feeling hurt and ignored and all of these things. So I think that, in that same vein, talking to yourself about, having your own back and reminding yourself that, you're in charge now. And, this day, the holidays or winter or whatever it is, it can be what you want it to be, irrespective of what family may or may not be doing. So the second boundary, especially with families, is to set healthy and flexible boundaries. And why I say flexible is that sometimes if our boundaries are too rigid, it is a signal of that's not so much a boundary as it is unresolved, painful emotions disguised as a boundary. Well-intentioned, but I just think it's really important to be aware of that. The third thing is to stand strong when those boundaries are tested, because they will be. So the nature of boundary setting is that people, whoever you set boundaries with, they're going to test your boundaries, because family dynamics and systems are very complicated. But what I can tell you is that when one part of the system changes, it does shift the entire system, whether the rest of those people in the system are changing or not. So I hope that gives people a little bit of a sense of hope, in terms of your changing your behavior and setting healthy boundaries. It can be effective with the rest of the system, whether they change or not. So hopefully, that's music to your ears, because I just think that's really powerful. And I always really like to share that with people, because most people don't realize that. They think, well, my mom or my dad or this or that. And it's like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to make a difference what they're doing now. You can be in charge of setting those boundaries and following through on those boundaries, if and when they are tested, which they will be. And if they're egregiously crossed, then it does require you to have consequences and follow through on those consequences. And here's the thing, this is all very general, because every situation is completely different. Individual situations, I can't necessarily speak to all of them, but these are just kind of some general recommendations. The fourth bit of advice is just good in general, which is don't argue about politics or religion or really hot button world events. I think that this is specifically for people who are around their families during the holidays. Your peace is too important to just kind of give away like that. And number two, you're not going to change minds. As an ally and an advocate, and all of those great things, not all members of my family are aligned with that. And so for me, I am very mindful, and all we can do is focus on our peace. I just think also the holidays is maybe not the time to, argue about this type of stuff anyway, because, it's to me, it just should be a time for everybody to take a rest, to take a break, to rejuvenate, and arguing with relatives isn't it. So I don't recommend that. And this goes for, if people want to argue with you, there's ways to just respectfully back out of that discussion, drawing boundaries around, I don't think this is a good idea for us to talk about right now. Let's pick it up in the new year, or, whatever kind of verbiage works for you. But I think when you're setting a boundary, clear, concise, and direct is always the best. Because if there's too many words or it's complicated, people can get confused and things like that. So, which is not your problem, but it just makes it easier. Number 5 is pick your battles, kind of in line with everything else that I've been talking about. Pick your battles with, people are going to upset you. Things are going to bother you. Things are going to be said or maybe not said. Because with the holidays, what's tough is it's not always what happens. It's the absence of good things that don't happen that can be really hard for folks. So I encourage you to pick your battles with the people that you're around and kind of with yourself. I think that, my main message is that we're all doing the best that we can, and it is good enough. And I think this is a time to just be gentle with yourself, and checking in with yourself, seeing how you're feeling, and all of those things. So I know these are a little bit basic, a little bit generic. I always have to be mindful about how much feedback I'm giving to folks, advice and things like that. So it's just a couple of little things from me to you, and I hope that it helps. I really do. One other thing that I did want to talk about before I peace out, and I told you this was going to be quick. I mean, usually I can be a chatterbox for an hour or 2 hours, but this is going to be brief. I did get an update about the gentleman on the side of the road that I helped get into the hospital. And I did want to share an update on that because I've had lots of people reach out to me and kind of ask what happened. So I got a call 2 weeks ago now from a social worker at a hospital out of the area. I'm not going to say which one, because again, I just think that privacy is really important. And the social worker, I was able to give the social worker some information because it was clear that she didn't have any of the information from the state police and from the crisis center or the hospital. She thought that the gentleman lived with me, which, I let her know that he doesn't, and that he was unfortunately homeless. And so that, I encouraged her, and listen, she was a wonderful person. Social workers are amazing. They do things that I give them so much credit for. But what I encouraged her to do was to look at a placement for him. And number one and number two, to call the Pennsylvania State Police and to call the crisis center, who might have more information that I wasn't exactly privy to. So the good news is that he is still safe. He's warm. He's being fed. Since that time, I haven't gotten any updates in terms of where he's going or will be going, but he was hospitalized for a large amount of time, which, I'm grateful for. He clearly needed that. And, just knowing that he's safe and warm, especially, here it's freezing out in Pennsylvania. It's like 30 degrees. Oh, so gross. Which, by the way, I love when I hear people in LA talking about how cold it is and it's like 60. When I was watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and they were like, it's freezing and it was 60 degrees, I was like, that is summer weather for us. That is wild. So I guess East Coast folks and West Coast folks have different temperature points. I don't know. So anyway, I am thrilled that he is safe and he is, okay, and he is being taken care of. And, I'm just super, super grateful for that. And that's about it. So I know this is a real short one, real brief, but keep an eye out for number one. Season 2 will be coming mid-January. And another thing that's pretty exciting is I have a couple of really great collaborations in the pipeline. I'm not going to discuss those yet or who I'm collaborating with or whatever, but I'm very excited to bring you a whole bunch of wonderful new content for season 2. In addition to collaborations, I am going to have some professionals on the show and, I'm going to keep serving Bish. So I just am so grateful for you all. I miss you. I can't wait to get back into, the swing of things with season 2 of the podcast. But I have been incredibly grateful for the little bit of a break. Although the day that I decided I was taking a break was the day Kyle reposted my stuff. And so it was a little bit less of a break than I had anticipated, but I am intensely grateful for the opportunity, for the validation. It's good to know I still got it. And I'm just really receiving a lot of great feedback from folks about the podcast and things like that. So I'm just so grateful and so appreciative. I can't wait to come back in January. And I just thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I hope you all have, for those who celebrate, I hope you all have wonderful holidays, New Year's and all of that good stuff. Oh, and one other reminder, the last thing I'm going to say is that for folks who are sober, this can be a really, really challenging time. And so, what I want people to know is that whatever you need to say to stay sober, if people are pushing alcohol or drinks, no is a complete sentence. Okay. And this goes for everyone setting boundaries. No is a complete sentence. I do fall victim to this myself, where I want to over explain myself or, give some sort of explanation for why I need to set a boundary. But that's, I've learned not to do that. And so I encourage you all, you don't need to over explain. No is a complete sentence. And sobriety is the best gift you can give yourself if you're in active addiction and are in recovery now. So please, I know it's a tricky time of year, but there are tons of ways to have fun and stay sober and enjoy the holiday at the same time. So sending you all so much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you in January. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Let's not forget that. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.